Hello and welcome to another episode from the water's edge. You catch up with us a short way into the session and actually connected to our first fish. We're actually fishing on Colton, which is one of the Barford complex and is well renowned for some really big fish for match water standards. So I'm just trying to get this fish in slowly, and what we're actually doing today is over the last few weeks and months we've had a few comments about how do you fish meat, like normal luncheon meat. So that's today's episode. That's what we're going to be showing you, hopefully, is just one way of how to catch fish on meat. I mean, there is hundreds of ways probably. If you think about all the different ways of fishing, there is so many ways you can do it. But what we're actually fishing today is a little meat feeder, which we will talk to you a bit more about in a moment. And for me personally, when you're looking to catch big fish, meat is probably one of the best there is. I mean, don't get me wrong, pellet probably catches the most, but if you're after big fish selection, I don't think you can beat meat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to concentrate in trying to get this fish in, and then we'll talk to you a bit more about what we're doing in the session. Well, there we are. Another one of the sort of fish you can expect to catch here at Colton. Wee, calm down. Really well hooked, so we'll get rid of that feeder. We'll have a little look at him, if he's going to calm down. Calm down. There we are, look. Cracking size fish. And the first fish of the session. Chuffed with that. Hopefully there's some more of these out there, because I could catch these all day long. And hopefully they're going to be bigger as well, if we manage to get into them. Cracking little start. Let's slip him back and we'll show you through what we're doing with the rigs and the baits. There we are, first fish of the session's gone back. While we're out of the water, what we'll do is we'll talk you through the rigs and the bait, and then hopefully we'll get back out fishing and into another fish shortly. So first of all, let's start off with what we've got here today. Now, I've got two rods set up. Now, the end tackle from the feeder downwards is exactly the same, but we've got two different lengths of rods. I've got the 9 foot here, which is my favourite rod to use. If I can get away with it, I'll use it anywhere. And I've got a nice sort of, well, the whole margin really is free, so I'm clipped up quite tight to the margin, and that's going to be hopefully where we're catching most of the fish from. But behind me I have also got a 12 foot rod, which is exactly the same, but it's not clipped up, and that's just going to be so I can cast a bit further. Obviously you limit to how far you can cast with 9 foot rods. That's the only drawback in my opinion, is how far you can cast it. So I've just got a 12 foot one in case I need to cast about. So that's on just £6 reel line, more than heavy enough to catch these fish in here. I mean, they go well into double figures, but like I said, soft rods, you're not going to be snapping your line on those at all. Now, then we come on to a free sliding feeder. That just slides on the line, and the feeder is actually a wire mesh feeder. This is probably the only instance I use a wire mesh feeder, and the reason being is when we're squeezing the meat, in which we show later, it actually sort of digs into the meat rather than a plastic one, so it actually holds in there a little bit better. And that's the only reason for using a wire cage feed, and as I said, it's probably the only case where I actually do use one. And that's just sliding on there, like I said, which comes onto a Corum quick change bead. Short hook length, probably, I don't know, 10-12 inches. And then onto a one of my old faithful Guru hooks and a little bait band on the end, which will show you how we put the meat on. So I mean, that's the rig I would use, nice and simple for most of the fishing. I mean, most of the commercials now don't actually allow like fixed rigs. If I could get away with it and your commercial did allow it, I'd probably have this on a little lead clip, but for the purpose of this, and because there is 80% of the time you can't do that, if you had to set it up, this is exactly how I'd feed it. Nice and safe, and it should be perfect for you. So that's the setup. Let's have a little look at the baits. Now we've got, obviously as we said, the main purpose is to show people how I would like to fish one example of fishing meat, and it is just normal unflavoured luncheon meat, really cheap, like 90p a pound off the shelf, no flavours in there at all. But the other bait we've got with it, which I think is just the classic, is some hemp. I mean, meat and hemp have gone together for years. It's been a classic combination. This is just a spicy hemp. Fish absolutely love chili, and if you just look in there, there's some chili flakes in there, and it's just like not really hot, but it's just got that little bit of spice to it, and they just can't resist it. But obviously like that, it's not really going to go in the feeder particularly well. So this is where this comes into it. But what I've actually done is I've got a whole tin of meat and I've pushed it through a really fine riddle. And that's what you can see there, is all these tiny little bits of meat that flake and stuff like that. I mean, if I could just chuck some of that down the edge here, they'd fall really slow, flutter over this little big area. So that holds in there really well, smells great, really strong with that spice in there. And that is what we're going to be plugging the feeder with. Now, like I said, meat can be fished in 100 different ways, and the good thing about it is it can take flavour. So be creative with this if you want. I mean, you could put in here some like shaker from Sonu. They do some real nice like spicy sausage shakers. You can dye it. I mean, red meat was one of my favourites 2 or 3 years ago. I caught so many fish on just cubes of meat dyed red. And that's a great thing about meat. It takes colour, it takes flavour, and it is so versatile. So don't get me wrong, this isn't the only way to fish it, but this is just probably one of my favourite ways. So now we get on to loading it. So what we do is, like I said, we're just fishing these little 8mm cubes. One of those threads onto a baiting needle. And then actually all you do is hook that onto your band, pull it really tight, and then you can actually just slide your cube of meat on and take the band out. Now what that band does is, obviously as you let it go, it expands in the meat and it holds it in there nice and soft and tight, sorry, should I say, in place. So really quick, and there's no hassle with quick stops or anything like that. And then the feeder couldn't be more simple, as you would with just a normal ground bait feeder. Give it a really good squeeze and that just goes in there. And that's what I was saying about the wire cage feeder. As you can see, it's sort of pushed into the meat, cut into it, and it holds it that little bit better. So that's all what we're doing. What we've got is we're clipped up, as I said, over the far side, so we'll get that out there now, and hopefully we'll be back with another fish shortly. Out we go, hit the clip. I'm not going really tight, I'm probably 2 or 3 foot away from the far margin. It's actually quite deep here at Colton down the edge. It's probably still 5 or 6 foot of water, so good depth of water for these bigger fish to come into. So we are, that's all set nicely. It's just a case now of sitting on your hands and hopefully getting another pull round with your rod getting dragged off the rest. Got another fairly decent fish on, it feels. Taken a little while to get a bite, and while we're on that note, I suppose it's worth mentioning that I don't leave this quite as long as I would, say, a method feeder or something like that, where I'd be happy to leave it half an hour. I think meat with a real high attraction rate, you're trying to get relatively quick bites. So if I was going to give you a time of how long to leave it, probably say like every 10 minutes plop another feeder out there, and like I said, just have 2 different spots, one clipped up, one roving rod, and then find where those fish are, and hopefully you should be catching fish relatively quick. Like I said, meat is really high in oil and attraction, and it is also probably worth mentioning with meat, I mean, most commercials, and Barford included, has a 2 tin limit on meat, and I'm a big believer in that, because I mean, don't get me wrong, meat is not bad for fish, but in large quantities, because of the real high oil quantity, it's not good leaving it sitting there on the lake bed. I mean, pellet breaks down, it's fine, but meat is not quite the same, doesn't react quite the same. So in moderation, it's great. And like I said, I've got with me 2 small tins, and that's going to do me the whole day session. So I mean, if you wanted somewhere, or you had a place where you needed to put in 3 or 4 kilo of bait, then I would advise not to use meat. In that instance, it probably is best to use pellet. But like I said, it's sort of a question of just little and often, and you should be fine catching pretty much all year. You can use it all year round, but just in small quantities is what I would definitely advise. And a situation when, I'm sure, is the $1 million question, which I'm always asking myself as well, is when do you use it over the method feeder and stuff like that. And like I said, it is a $1 million question, but if I was going to give it advice, I'd probably say when no one else is using it, when everyone is fishing the method and pellet and ground bait, try this, you may find it works. Meat doesn't work on every venue, but it is a great method when it does work. It really does pick out those bigger fish. So like I said, it's more use what I've shown and try and find where you believe it's better to use than it would be any other bait. It's always worth having in your bag. There we are. Oh. That is a proper fish. I don't know if the camera will do, if I get the hook out of my finger, do justice of the size, but that is pushing 8 to 10 pound. He's really wide across the shoulders. I'm always watching other videos and thinking fish don't look that big, but sometimes the camera doesn't do it justice. But seeing it in real life, that is a cracking commercial carp. Almost a leather. I can't actually see any scales on him. Oh, there's a couple down the end there, so he's not a leather, but almost a leather. What a stunning fish. Let's slip him back. Well, we're into another fish. This one is actually on the other rod, which I said I had set up behind me, the 12-foot rod. The reason being is we'd been fishing about a quarter of an hour out there, and we've had a few lines now. I'm sure there's fish there, but I think they're just a little bit wary at the moment, and we had a lot of activity, sort of, I don't know, it's probably another 30 yards up the bank, and as I said, it's why I've got this 12-foot rod with me. It's just to cast to showing fish and any signs, and that, I mean, that's the biggest thing I can give you tip wise, is don't ever just sit in one spot. I mean, over the last few years, for me personally, moving about to different spots has been the biggest change in why I've caught more fish than I did a little while ago, in the fact that I now actually do have 2 rods set up and I just moved to different fish. I mean, I'm going to go back on that spot. There's definitely fish there, and I'm sure we're going to have one back on the clipped up spot, but don't be shy to have another rod set up just for occasions like this. You catch that extra odd fish. So getting closer now. Hopefully we'll have another one to show you. And there we are. Another one falls for the meat feeder. You can just see if pop that hook out. He's quite lightly hooked, that one. But see if we can hold him up for you. We calm down. And there we are, another cracking fish. You just don't seem to catch small fish here at Colton. They are all big fish. I mean, especially talking obviously commercial fish. These are big fish for commercial waters. And really, really big weight builders. Proper meat munchers. Let's pop him back and have another chuck. There we are, safely returned. Let's get another feeder loaded and we'll get back out there. I mean, what I did actually have before I got that bite was 3 or 4 little knocks, and I thought there was a fish down there feeding. And what I probably think it is, I tend to get this quite a lot when I fish with this meat feeder, is you got 3 or 4 different sizes of bait inside this mix that we showed you earlier. Like I said, I've got like the 8mm cubes that we actually got on the hook, and that's where the beauty of the hemp. It's different size baits, and the mush meat as well is all sorts of different sizes. And what it keeps doing is it keeps the fish, one, keeps them in there longer because they're trying to find different food size particles, and 2, keeps them guessing of where your hook is. When they're picking up tiny little bits of hemp and big bits of meat, they just literally don't know where that hook's going to be. I think if you keep feeding the same thing all the while, they can sort of get a bit more wary of something's going to be in there. Like that, them little different sizes just keeps them guessing. So I'm going to have another cast with the longer rod, as I just put it out there. Like I said, it's perfect, 'cause it's going to give me a little while to let that rest, and hopefully we'll be back over there and catching on the other spot as well. So again, it's just time to wait. Sit on your hands. You don't need to be hitting them little knocks. You want to wait for a proper pull round, and then hopefully you'll be into a fish. Well, we've switched back to the shorter rod and the clipped up spot that we were on earlier, and it was literally out there, like, I don't know, a minute, 2 minutes maybe, and that's just the beauty of it. I mean, obviously with all them tiny little particles of hemp and that, while I was fishing around other different spots, there's probably little bits of bait there that they've just got confidence in, built up a bit of a happy area to feed in, and then literally you come back with one cast and you ambush one that you're feeling pretty safe. So he seems pretty angry about it as well. He's given me a real run around down to my left. See if we can swing him back towards us. Trying to go for the undercuts. There we are, he's nearly ready. And to be fair, we'll probably call this one the last fish. We've had a few fish on camera for you today, and hopefully answered a few of those questions that one way to fish meat. And I'm sure if you follow our channel, there'll be many more videos to come with more ways to fish meat. But why not get out there and give this one a go? It's certainly done well today, and it has done for me in other times I've fished it as well. Oh, he's nearly in the net then. There we are, he's in. Another cracking fish. He's certainly got some weight to him. Calm down. Slip that hook out. And there we are. Another absolutely cracking fish. Caught on meat. Still angry while he's on the bank as well. But what about that for a note to end on? So some cracking fish, average size, again, very big for commercial fish. And some absolute stunners mixed in. Probably topped off with saving the best till last. He even got a little bit of a shoulder on him. It's cracking days fishing anyway. As I said, I'm going to have a couple more chucks. There's some more fish out there for me yet, I suppose. But as always, I'd like to say thanks for watching, and we'll see you again on the next one.